Hey everyone, welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Jess. This is Ruby, and I'm here today with Jess Cabato. Hey Jess.
Hi, Jess.
We're the Jesses. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, your work, both your full-time gig and your freelance work?
Yeah, since I'm going to start off with type since this is all about type right now, and I'm going to tell you how I began. But I just want to ask everyone, do you guys know this S? Jess, do you know this S, this cool
That's
S?
that's the cool S. That's the cool S. That's my alma mater. I graduated from her.
Anyway, I just remember doodling so much when I was a kid, and the S was started me off. I would say that now, after graduating from the S, I graduated to always saying writing hello in like various forms, like cursive or straight or block levels. But then, like once we started going into computer class, I'm gonna go to my next things. Where do you guys remember word art on the screen on your computer when you're in computer class?
Remember, 100% pretty neat.
I used to think that instead of actually writing my book report that making word art would give me an A or 100% than actually writing the content. So didn't really work out for me, but it looked really cool. So I was pretty happy with it. Um, and then what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So fast forward from word art to many, many, many years of graduating. I actually graduated in I graduated with a degree in college, and I decided to move to New York to pursue it. I was going to go to get a master's in something, and during that time, I realized I don't really can hack it.
As
And
what was that
yeah,
master's going to be?
so I actually was going to go into master's for social work. I really
Okay,
wanted,
that's
yeah,
not the same thing.
totally
Like
opposite.
completely different.
I grew up with my grandparents living in my house. I really loved geriatrics and I loved hunger, or not loved hunger. I mean, you know what I mean? I wanted to feed the hungry. I mean, those
Yeah,
were
yeah,
very aspirational things as when you were younger, and I tried to move forward with that. It also, I think because I wasn't going to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer that my parents probably wanted me to be, this was
yeah. A
a
graphic
little bit
designer.
better. Well, when I went back to school for graphic design, they're like, "You wait, what? What is graphic design?" Like arts for Asians weren't the most popular thing amongst parents, but I made it work, and they finally understood. Especially, like after that, I got a job right actually during school. Funny, I started at CBS, and then I went to Viacom, and then whoop, years later they married each other back again, and they became Paramount. So I've been there for many, many years collectively. And you can see my first picture was my first little mini VMAs that I had 2013. And then fast forward to the most recent VMAs that were in the UBS Center in the city, in New York City, to be, if you guys didn't know where I was
Pictures that
located.
you sent me from the show were very cool. I saw everything like half a second before everyone else.
You were like, oh my gosh, was Taylor Swift there? I'm like, yeah, I guess I can
Good
kind
for
of see her. I'll
her.
like go zoom in a little bit. But yeah, no, it's such a cool experience. I love it. And like I work under the marketing and sales team. So being that I put all the potential logos and snipe of all the various networks under Paramount. I do not have all of that. If my coworkers are online, I didn't have time to put all of them in there. So sorry, but this is the general gist of it.
Great. So what's your position, your title at Paramount working across all of these brands?
I am currently an art director and I have an amazing team and a wonderful manager. Um, yeah, and they're all great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what do I have next? Oh, so back to type since we were both talking about this. This, my friends, was the first thing I hand lettered. I was very proud of myself back in the day. And I look back at it and I'm like, wow. But I always think you always need that moment of reflection of being like how much you grew from those years.
So let me
Um,
say for your first ever lettering piece, especially by hand, like there's no digital involved with that. I'm
yeah.
assuming like that's pretty great. I
Thank
think
you. A
yeah.
lot of props from you, Jess. Um, and then I did the whole thing. I started getting the grid and like I was just doing everything in pencil. And there was some kind of like satisfaction and going back into using your hands to make something because as creatives, sometimes I think that's where we started. That was how we originated from. And so I really did that. And then I would practice a lot. And apparently, when I practiced, I used a lot of words that I really didn't realize I used a lot. And then when I went to put this up on the presentation, I was like, wow, I have a really big a mouth on myself. Um, so I bleeped it out because I wasn't sure about, if it was safe for work or not, whatever. But yeah, no, I practiced, I took classes, I took calligraphy, I took block letter, I took a class with like Ken Barber. I think it's just one of those things like the more you do, the better you get. And like you don't realize it. And then once I went into my old stuff, I was like, yeah,
Like,
I
oh
like it.
no.
It got better. But then this happened during my stint at I guess at the time was Viacom. I then decided to get married and have kids, and this is a drawing for my daughter.
Hmm.
And let me tell you that transition from being a creative to a mother was a very big change in my life, a lot of new priorities I had and responsibilities I had. And I think, this is like a different talk, but I think that mind shift of changing of what your priorities are very significant. And trying to provide for your family and stuff like that really had a really an impact on my life on what I want to do move forward and like how do I get joy back? How do I get my happiness back? How do I get myself back? And so I did during this time of my kids' time take a little like mini break and which really is unfortunate for mothers in the working field just because like sometimes it does kind of set you back and it really shouldn't. But anyway, I took myself back and I decided to be like, you know what, this is the year. So I practice again. And then I started off and I have like all this new work from this past couple years. And it really changed. Once I put my mind to it, once I changed my mindset and like um, like I just had a different POV on life. I moved and I started working on Procreate. So you can tell that these are a little bit different than although I still like the grid and my dotted grid and stuff like that. These are more like the hand lettering stuff I do, more of the graphic stuff that I've done in the past. And I just wanted to show you big quips. I
I
did a
love
little like 36 days of types and I wanted to play around with it just because it was like, I tried to do two different sets of types where one was hand lettering and one was more graphic. And I was like, oh my gosh,
I
there's a lot
tried
of
to do
work.
that 1 year too. It didn't work out. I think I only made it to D and then I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, it really takes a lot of time. You really have to plan it, and I wasn't very good at it, but it was a really good exploration. I'm happy to show people this if anybody wants to, but it's funny. I don't have it. I actually should have thought about this, but I used it for one of my initial execution or not executions, my initial inspirational pieces or mock-ups to send over to like a client for like a board or something. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Do you
Um,
do you
oh yeah.
find that like explorations like this end up coming into a lot of your work type wise? Like I know this is personal work, but then your work at your full-time job, you're like, okay, I have to come up with some sort of typography, lettering, and like do you draw inspiration from your personal work that ends up whether it's the same thing or it just kind of is like a metamorphosis of something that you came up with personally?
Yeah, you know what? I would say it wasn't until the past couple years where I really tried to dive deep and like really have a self-reflection and really just look at all the type and practice it more in a different kind of level that I start actually integrating both personal and work because a lot of what I've seen and a lot of what I practice in my personal work is reflected in my work, in my full-time job. And so like if there's a specific project or campaign that's going out that we need to share with the client, even just like mock-ups or just like, you know, just ideas. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this would be like perfect for it. Like like let's just try it out. And it could be just like one single image of it, but like people just put that in there. And I think actually having this side personal create like art creation for myself, my personal art, really has influenced me in my actually everyday job, and it just helped push me creatively further. And I am very thankful for that. So yeah, I do. Yes.
That's
Short
awesome.
answer, yes. Hi. I'm just saying hi to your dog.
Okay. I can't see myself, so I don't know if anybody's able to see her or if you can even see or myself.
I can see you. I can see both of you.
Cool. Okay,
Uh,
cool. Let's
oh
yeah,
yeah.
tell us more.
Um, yeah, and so one of these, this is Unheard and Untreated, or Untreated and Unheard, which I worked with one of a person on a team, Ashley Ako, and we worked on this long form documentary, with a really great creative director, Spencer. And he like it's actually living on it was living on like CBS, Pluto, ABC, and other networks. I should have actually written this down. But it was such a meaningful documentary, and it really like pushed the envelopes in like design. And I think which happens sometimes in work is that we put our heart and soul in design. Sometimes they move forward with a different direction, but honestly, working on this and creating all the assets for it was such a great exploration in creativity, but also just like working on something that was so like satisfying. This was probably one of my favorite projects that I've worked on. And so what I do on a lot of times at my work is that we create style boards for co-branded spots that live across, TV as well as like our social platforms. And so this is like a small portion of what I do is like I work with like designers and myself, and we kind of try to come up with like different styles for the specific campaign or co-branded spots that are going to go out, there. So this is one example, and another one is we'll go back. Oh wait, no, I think that's my last one. So that's basically my life working in a nutshell. I'm not sharing anything else, at least in terms of this presentation that I have here.
Okay.
But a lot of my work that I do in my full-time job is doing a lot of those boards. I work on a lot of events. We do a lot of ads and evites. We do, so type has really influenced me away on how I can see things living on TV across like different spots, all the way to like the 1 by 1, 19 by 6, 16 by 9 frames that live across like the social world, because like when you're thinking of type, you're like, I have to take these words and have to make sure they live across all these different, ratios. And I know that like Adobe has made some progress in like making those like bulk changes for like the different formats and stuff, which I really want to get acquainted with more. But I know that as a graphic designer, you really need to have that eye to help you see what fits best. And then also there's a lot of safeties in a lot of them. I don't know if anyone knows this, but like when you create a reel or when you create a story for like LinkedIn or whatever, they do have these like safety zones, and it feels like more like a 1-to-1 frame. And then
By
also
safety
cross,
zones, you mean like where it kind of shows, but it's likely to get.
yeah, it'll cut off. So you don't want anything important there.
Got it. Got it.
Yes. And then similar to like television, because some of the format you want it 16:9, but you have a buffer zone just in case, like, if you want to like a lower third, if you want the title, you want it sitting nicely in the center or somewhere where it's legible and readable. Otherwise, like you'll miss a person's name, or you'll not really see the full title or whatever content that's going on.
I'd imagine that figuring out how to stack the type and also giving it a horizontal treatment is kind of a challenge. Like, no, no, or no, or yes.
No, it is. It is.
Oh, okay.
I
It's like, I don't know, maybe you're so good at it that it's just like, oh no, I can do this with my eyes closed.
no, it's definitely hard. I would say that I think when I started out at CBS, I worked a lot on web printing, and you really web printing, web and ads. And so like you really need to know by the pixel, like how much space you
Right.
have within this like 300 by 250 like spec space. And
Yeah,
so
that's
I
very
think,
exciting.
yeah, it's so nitty gritty. but starting from that, and I also had some great managers. It was best Brett Bassis and Jackie DeHuff. They like really were like, and I was just like a junior designer then. They were like, no, you need to look at it again. You have to like count the pixels and like
Ugh.
make sure there's space. And it was so tedious. But like it really helped me in the long run that like now I'll be like, hey, can you like nudge this over one pixel or like one nudge or something?
Oh,
So
I know people
um
that do.
but
Hey, can
yeah,
you
like
over 1 pixel? Oh my God. Yeah, okay, I guess.
one nudge to the left and to the right. Okay, you
Yeah.
got it. Like it's just like as you develop your skill set and you have more experience with seeing type, you notice things. And I'm sure even as like once you get out of school or even starting any of these design courses, you'll realize like looking at each of the signs and looking at the subway, you're just like, oh, like look at the kerning, the space between the letters, or look at the lettering with the space. Like we need to close it up. And like, I think I remember in the beginning, I like couldn't turn that off. You just like kept looking at things, and I was like, oh my
I
God, I know.
still do. I still do. I'll see something and be like, I know that font. Or even worse, when I'm out with friends, I'll be like, I know who made that font. I know them. They're like, okay, we don't care actually. Thanks.
I know them. But yeah, no. So then now I'm hoping that, if I have any other designers that I work with or whatever, they just don't, I try to be like, hey, like, let's really look at the padding around the space to make sure that, there's readability, legibility within the frames for when it's on linear. But once we get it onto digital, we have to like adjust it accordingly because it's like from a bigger screen to like something super small. And like type obviously has to be adjusted for that. And you get to understand that the more and more you work with it, again, similar to hand lettering, like the more you practice, the better you get, the different styles you achieve. And so I feel like only really accelerated understanding that concept the past couple years.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have seen you skip to the next slide. Were you going to show us some personal work?
Oh, I mean, no. Well, I
Oh,
did show you some personal. I
well,
did. I did show you some personal work, but I was gonna go on some case studies and show like past stuff that
yeah,
I've done. With some of the team in here. Let me figure out where this is. Okay, so,
oh, wait, I just
uh,
want to do a call out. If anybody is in Jersey, when is Jess is doing a
oh.
lettering uh, crash course? Beginners.
Yeah, a very beginning lettering crash course. It's in New Jersey. It's on my Instagram. I was about to say LinkedIn. Instagram. It's under the links. You might need to go on wait list, but if there's enough people on the wait list, they're going to have another one, and I might do a little bit more of an advanced one. Um,
Cool. And Jess's Instagram is at by Jess Cabato.
yeah, by Jess Cabato. Hmm.
Amazing.
Perfect. So I hope you all remember my name by the end of this. So yeah, this is what my boards sometimes look like when I am trying to design something. I'm pretty sure many of you have similar stuff. This is something that's already live on YouTube. I just mainly took off the sponsor logo just because I felt like I needed to, but you guys can easily look this up on YouTube. Sometimes during our work, we are tasked with creating like a look for a specific franchise. And so when I tell you when we create a specific look, we basically have 24, 48 hours to create a brand for a show. And so it is a lot of,
For a
maybe we
whole
have more.
show.
For like a whole show, potentially a longer running stint.
Okay.
It's for like a franchise, and so one of these is out right now, and I worked on this one with Tristan, one of the designers, and she helped also ideate a few logos. And this is a digital series that launched for RuPaul's Drag Race called Shoot Your Shot. And basically the idea was that queens were challenged to take self-portraits inspired by the advertiser in some way. And so they were able to give us some shots of the actual queens. And so then obviously like we had to the brand, you take in the actual RuPaul's Drag Race brand. It's very, you have a lot of bold colors. You got pinks, you got blues, but then the actual advertiser, which I'm not going to say in here yet, is also very like bold and bright and colorful. And so hence these are where the colors in, but we're also doing a fashion shoot. So a lot of the talks were like, oh, we want it like photography. So you're talking about the aperture, but some thoughts were like, oh, we want it bold or whatnot. And so like I just go on and just start doing stuff. I looked at the little, like frames that, I think Tristan did some aperture shots. I did one aperture shot and I'm like, no, this is just not working well.
I love
But
seeing like the process of these that you went through. Finish your thought, but then I would also love for you to take us like where you started with this process in terms of like different versions, and then kind of like we saw where you ended, but like the thought processes that went through that entire.
through these,
They're all pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, these are, I think they went with a different version, but I would just wanted to talk about how basically like going through trying to find like the different bold and uppercase. It's so hard when you're like, oh, should it be uppercase? Should it be sentence case? Should it be all lowercase? And you're like, what is it? Just like this is actually good looking. This is actually organized in comparison to like other things. But I think it's also because we only had like 24 hours to actually get this done. But at the end, it's funny. I tend to, we, at the end of the day, always have to send a lot of our stuff to the animators. So while I do a lot of exploration in Illustrator, I end up having to do a few things in Photoshop, which you'll see here. And I don't know why the screen did not go all the way, but as you can see here, so to sell through on the concept for any of them, we really have to show them living on what we call like a title card. And so how does the logo, I'll remove that. How does the logo look on the actual background or backplate? How does the logo look on a piece of the footage from the actual spot? And so we had to see how it looks on each of them. These are just like my takes on them. So I was able to create just like a Photoshop a PDF. I exported these out and made a PDF. But the reason is because sometimes once you put this, once they approve a logo, sometimes they literally go straight to the animator, and it's easier when it's on when it's rastered layers on Photoshop. Oh my gosh, I can't even speak. Just for them, because when they work on Illustrator, it does like really funky things. I don't know if you worked on it After Effects at all, but I've learned a lot from
As an illustrator, lettering artist, graphic designer, I am afraid of After Effects. One day, maybe.
I mean, I've learned a lot about how to set up, a lot of my files from Rob. I don't know if he's listening to this, but he is an animator, motion designer, and he's so smart and he's helpful in so many ways. So he's really helped kind of set these up, help me show me how to set up my files correctly so that once it moves from like the design, it'll go straight easily, like seamlessly into to After Effects. But again, what I was saying is that to sell the ideas of like the types of like the types of look, like this had a more like clean, elegant, like photo shoot. This was more like, this kind of reminded me more of like the bold and loudness of the advertiser with some of the colors. And we had to put the colors in within the actual spot because it really needed to be co-branded. So we took some of the colors from the advertiser and then and kind of like we had to figure out a way to seamlessly but not distract from this. And then and this one was just more like, obviously it was a little bit on the nose with an actual like with the little the flare and the
Always love a
little
little sparkle though, and like, which were any of these? Did any of these end up being the final, or is the
these
final?
actually were not the final, but
Are you allowed to show us the final?
I do not have the final, but I actually can Google it for you eventually, but maybe I will No, I think I have this. Hold on. No, I'm not gonna get into this because it's gonna take too long. But I will say, I'll leave you guys in suspense. Go Google shoot your shot.
I just want to apologize if anyone hears my dogs barking. I'm gonna just put myself on mute until I have to say anything.
It's all good. Your dog's super cute. But I will go into another case study in which you will actually see the final. And this is another one I've done a long time ago where I worked with designers Brittany and Tristan, again, who worked with Shoot Your Shot. And this one was another
treatments.
This one actually was another franchise for RuPaul's Drag Race. It was a contest show, and they had to create something where out of like just like everyday items, I believe. And then they had to finish with like this colorful wig by the appetizer, like colored by the appetizer or something. And so this one was a very quick turnaround too. I think they gave us maybe 48 hours, 72 hours or something like that. But we had so many graphics. Like apparently there was like a robot that was made. It was like they wanted to be set in future times of like New Jersey, which is funny. And they kept talking
like physically
built and design. Or yeah, physically built. Like it was like in the future, but like, but the set, it was funny because they kept talking about like, oh, they're going to walk the runway and they're going to like model it and they want it like fashion, like high fashion, and elegant and stuff like that. So like that was like the first kind of like, but then they also talked about a robot and then talked about being future. And so you're like, okay, so we
high fashion robot.
And it was just like talking, we were like trying to brainstorm with designers, and I think a lot of us took different approaches. Like some went more tech, digital, some went more like runway. I think I did more high fashion. And it was just like, so we could, because like sometimes, clients don't know what they want until they say it. They can say one thing, but they mean the other. And so here is the type treatments for, like our take on Take It to the Runway. And obviously, like this one, again, similar, it was high fashion. And I think you can see kind of like a through line where a lot of the sans serif, like the thinner serifs really have that editorial feel. And like that's kind of like reminds me of fashion. Yes, yes. So that was kind of where I was going at with the high fashion. So like this can really show that without having to add anything else to it. Like even just like this by itself, you're like, oh, like this is like a nicer, clean, like thin serif, and you're like, this is probably more of like a fashion editorial kind of look. And then I think I was trying to go with this kind of look with like futuristic, a little bit of like something with the gradients, and then the illusion of like the runway in the middle of it. And this was a little bit funkier, and because I think at one of the briefs they said retro, and so that's kind of like how that kind of worked away. And so a lot of and we also had these back plates because they also wanted some.
I love those. Can you talk a little bit more about specifically this one with the letters? Because this is just like it's really interesting, and it makes for a fun pattern, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's great. It was fun. Well, initially the ask was they're also going to be at a confessional, and then they wanted something in the back that like they wanted, like runway shown or something like that, just like to help bring that idea out a little bit more. But yeah, like for me, I'm like I love type, and I think the idea of I just like having type run across full width across everything as a graphic element. And I think that's really bold and beautiful and visual. And I think for me, that idea is captured on TV very well. And so that's kind of like where I went with that, especially with this like retro font, really created these cool curves and just just the shapes. And you're just like, you kind of like want to go into it being like, what else is there? Like, I want to see more of this. Like it creates such cool patterns and shapes that it brings your eye into it more. And I think that's kind of like what I was going for with this. And so that's kind of what this version of it was. And I don't think I went with that one. And so these are other takes of like the more digital round. And I think Brittany helped work on these ones where it was a more futuristic approach, if you can tell, because
I really do love
like
that one. That one I think is so cool.
one of my like favorites. And I was like really but it's just like you can just tell, I mean, considering like this, like how the type treatment changes from, wow, I should probably take these out so you guys can see them. The type treatment, this versus just this. I mean, you have two, like it's
Yeah,
so polar
definitely.
opposite.
Those are like different shows.
Yeah, two different shows.
Yeah.
And the like the fact that type can really change that. It's the same words, but just the type, even if this doesn't have any color, just this effect like really changes the mood of it. And then we'll actually go into this later. So again, here it is more on her iterations of this. And then there's more, and then we have another one where it went with like more futuristic also Runway, because I think in one of the clips that we had, they had like those bulbs. Do you know what I mean?
It's
That
very Broadway, and that's a
Yes,
compliment. Like I really like that too.
yes. So I think that's what like especially like these ones and these. So, the client really loved all of them. And then we basically started, I think they actually started out with this because the whole concept was like fashion runway. We actually built out like the lower thirds. We built out, like the back plates for the confessional. We built out, I think we had to build out like a robot kind of like interface because they wanted at one point the robot would be talking in a POV and they wanted to see like through the robot's eyes and stuff like that.
That's so fun.
So then let's just change it up. So then the client was like, this is too good. Don't you love it when they say that? We're like, wait, what? This was too good. This was too
Wait,
much
what do they
aligned.
mean too good?
So this looked like too much aligned with the network or the RuPaul's Drag Race or like the branding of
Okay.
RuPaul's Drag Race. So they wanted some differentiation, which is fair. Like I get it. RuPaul is like it's beautiful work and we want to differentiate a little bit. So I think this was like too close for comfort for them and they wanted to delineate it some way. So they were like, we're going to make this into a game show.
Okay. I mean, that's fun, but doesn't that like change everything for you?
Yeah. So, well, we actually, one which really did really well, we were working with Tristan and, I was trying to grab some inspiration of like kind of game show, like retro 90s or retro game shows. And then like something stacked like this really did work well with it. So then, oh, close your eyes, everybody. We went and like looked at some of these and I'm like, oh, that like works. So then uh this was kind of like how I took the sponsor guys off the top, just so you know, but you'll see it if you look at the YouTube. We did a retro, like futuristic feel, but also retro take on like the actual like Take It to the Runway with the angles and the curves with her logo. And then the That's So Metal challenge was actually a specific episode within the franchise of Take It to the Runway. We won't get into that, but they wanted that metallic. So it really lended itself well. So this is actually the final result. And honestly,
Which
it
one's the
looked
final, or was it all of them?
all of this is the final,
Okay.
which it was such a departure from the original, but when they put it all together, all the animators and the animation was done. We worked on the, like confessional and the graphics, the lower thirds, the robot face. It looked so awesome that I was just like, oh, I'm so glad for this change. It was so crazy. I mean, it was crazy because we had to change this in like 24 hours and make this, but I think the result really spoke for themselves. I would, if you guys like look at like Take It to the Runway and Google that also on YouTube, you'll see that first episode and you'll notice, I think it was best. I bet this was the best execution for it, and I think it really did well. So
I like it. I'm not the
yeah,
client, but
no,
I like it, and I think the client did too. So
yeah, they did.
win-win. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
know. And props to like Brittany and Tristan because we all were in it to win it. We were all just like down grinding over the weekend and in the night and be like, oh my goodness, this is hard, but it was worth it. It was one of the more fun and creative projects that we have spent our time on. And then but yeah,
Sorry,
so
myself.
all good. But this is kind of a lot of the stuff that I do at work for a lot of the projects, or not I do, our team does. And when we get co-branded campaigns that we get to work on, they're really fun. I mean, the only downside is that they're just like a very quick turnaround, which like you can't really, add too much time. You don't really get so much time extra to help it, but because there is like a deadline of like this actually goes on air like next week, you
That's
know?
crazy. So like, okay, let's get into a lot of the type of it all. Obviously
Yes.
here, you have the fonts and like these. I'm so sorry about this one. The fonts are all the same for this, but was there at any point where they were like, okay, we want you to experiment with different fonts for each of the different types of logos, or even if it wasn't this project and another one, where you had to do like a lot of experimentation with maybe like customizing, or is it typically just like, okay, we're using a street font?
I think honestly, we would customize fonts more if it weren't for the timing, because I
That's
think
fair. That's probably really hectic.
because I think when, even just looking for the one or two fonts that you can explore with, really, it takes so much time into just finding the right font. I think there's sometimes where I'll go through, when I'm working on exploration, you'll have like 50 fonts laid out and you're like, none of these
Yeah.
work. And you're like, and then finally at the like 20th hour, you're like, okay, this one works. And then you just start grinding out all like how it could
And it's
be.
always like the first or second one you looked at.
Yeah, it really is because it's like your gut, right? But but yeah, I mean, if we had the time, we would be able to customize it more and I wish we could do. And hopefully maybe moving forward we can try to do that. But I think right now we just like we kind of just like match the font with whatever type of the campaign, with that feeling, with
Right.
the tone, and just like work within that as as possibly can, within the time frame, of course.
Yeah, that time frame is really intense. I think I would throw up. Like, hey, we need a whole brand done tomorrow. Like, okay, good luck.
Yes, that is if sometimes when you work in the corporate side or agency side of design, you'll get those really quick turnarounds. Um, but sometimes the payoff's really nice, right? Like, but
Yeah, I
I
feel like
get to work on various things.
yeah, it's a cool challenge. Um, I'd imagine. Actually, I did work agency side at one point, and yeah, it's a cool challenge, but it's a challenge nonetheless. Um, just I can't get past a 24-hour turnaround.
Yeah, and that's like across everything. I mean, like that's branding, but then, we'll get small asks of like, let's create like an Evite or let's create like a mini landing page or a
You had the
presentation.
branding already done at that point.
I think at the point we'll have like templates or we'll use like some really short, maybe not landing page, newsletters, which we already have like templatized and stuff like that. But it sometimes the ask is fairly quick. But if our client is quick enough and they get us, sometimes we do get 3 to 4 days on things, which is like awesome. And then there are those magical moments where you get like a week or two and
That's
you're
nice.
like, thank
That's
goodness. And you're just like praise and you get to actually explore. You get to like brainstorm. You get to look at the fonts, look at type houses and just like really dive deep into those. So that's our favorite when we have that time to explore because
really
I think type really affects, the tonality and the voice of what you're putting out there, right? So as you could tell from one of the previous ones.
Yeah, there's like it's a meme that's I don't know a million years old, and it's like oh like font matters, and then there's one with like all hearts and cute and says I'll always be there for you, and then there's one that's all like scary and spooky like Halloween. It's like I'll always be there for you. And, like it's a very simple example, but it's true. Like you could use the same exact design and then change the font in this to take it to the runway, and it's like oh this is something completely different.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that's like probably a type exercise somewhere too, like what they do in school or something. Maybe we should just go back to that and do some explorations with like fonts and
Fun.
do one phrase and like try to make it a different, try to change the tone of it through the different fonts and then see what you come up with.
I like
But
that.
yeah.
Oh, 1 second. That sounds like fun, and it also sounds like fun to everybody else on this chat because we're all obsessed with type. But if you go out into the real world, we're like, how fun is it to look at fonts? They're like, okay. How fun is it to have friends? Get a life.
But I think I showed you on my one of the, where is my creative spotlight? My last one, which was the alphabet for 36 days of type. I'm still playing with it and I still hopefully one day will finish it, but we can go through it. And this is funny. This is actually done, I think because I was so into Photoshop a lot of the times, especially when I'm doing a lot of my boards for sending it to the motion team, that I have been doing some certain fonts in Photoshop. And I know most of the time we do fonts in Illustrator. So I actually have, I can work through with showing you how I get this
I would
effect.
actually love that because this is such a cool effect. And I love specifically like the letter forms that you use, but I would also be so curious to try this out on something that's completely different and see how it looks. So
Yeah.
yeah, walk us through that. I would love to see that.
Okay, we'll do
Yeah.
it. Well, this is one example, but actually, I start out with those letter forms, with these original letter forms. I draw them out on my iPad. And then from there, I bring them into Illustrator and I do, I'm not going to draw it out because right now that'll probably take a lot more longer. But then I go into Illustrator and obviously you go into the image trace and I trace it, the black and white one, and then I bring it into Photoshop. So from here, I usually open up, for me, I like 10 by 10 or 1080 by 1080 just to like start it off. And we can have just a basic letter. I'm gonna pick R this time. So oh my God, I'm just gonna say R. Imagine like I drew that already. Um,
Yeah.
and
Font. I've used it before and I
yes.
very much enjoy it.
Oh my gosh. It is a good font. Um, bring this real big. So imagine I drew this. And then I worked on
Amazing.
Illustrator and I got all the stuff. So what you can do, and it's actually super simple. Actually, what color should we pick? I think that I'm gonna go with,
Let's ask the chat. Okay, let's shoot. Okay, Jess,
I didn't
choose.
even know there was a chat. Oh,
I don't think we can see it, but somebody else can see it and then let us know.
okay.
But
Okay.
the chat, please let us know what color to choose between, I don't
I
know,
need like I need like three colors.
three
I was
colors.
thinking of like teal, cyan, and magenta, but like we can go with
Okay.
anyone.
Okay. Let's let's give it like a second. And then hopefully Jacob, who is just on our end, can let us
Jacob, we need you.
can let us know what the chat chooses. Um, but yeah, I am really excited to see your process on this.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then I think I used this effect for a few other explorations, and I'm like, God, I freaking love this. I want to do this for everything.
I mean, why not? Like, and then there are so many times where I'm like, okay, I love this effect, and then I start doing it like pretty often, and then I might like make a mistake or just like purposefully make some departure from it, and then I discover something else and I'm like, oh, this also looks really cool. And then through that I kind of just develop like new styles that I enjoy working with.
Um, Jacob just said, pull up that
Yes, the
Jessie.
link. Okay, let's see the chat. Okay. Okay, somebody said gradients, but we're not quite there yet. Purple, red, yellow. Okay. Do you want to do
Okay.
purple, red, and yellow? That's like a really interesting combo.
Okay, I will do that. So I will fill my background color and my shortcut is Shift Delete. Um, just to bring this thing up. And then what was it? Purple? I'm gonna
Yeah.
go with the regular purple. That's gonna be the background color. And then what was it? Red and yellow?
Yes.
Ooh, the R should be yellow.
Yeah, I think the red might be harsh. Ooh,
The
oh,
red will
I
be.
do like that green. We might have to
Maybe
stop.
it'll have to change the green. Let me see if I can get that green going.
That's a pretty, yeah, we'll do yellow, yellow, green. Okay. That's
Okay, why
cool.
not? Okay, so I'll do that, and then I am going to duplicate this, and I'll try to be organized, and I'm going to be like the R outline. Oh my gosh, I am. Look how organized I am. I actually um
You name
labeled. I
layers.
labeled this. I know. Okay, so what you want to do is. I want to make this, so right now I'm gonna hide that and I want to make this what, a yellow, maybe magenta or some kind of pink. Might go well with that. I want to make a stroke. Oh my gosh. And I want to add a stroke to that. And so not that big. I'm gonna make it like 5 points. I'm gonna do 5 point center and I want the color. I'm thinking like a brighter, kind of just like vibrant magenta. So right now it already has the fill of the inside green. You want to turn that off. I take the fill off. There we go. No more fill. So I'm going to offset that a little bit so that you can see it. And I am going to move that, to the right. Looks good. Kind of want to duplicate that because why not? We love that like kind of layered effect.
This is fun.
Okay.
I like
And how
this.
about like one more?
It's really
Just
interesting seeing you do this. And like I create effects similar to what this currently looks like, not necessarily the entire thing, but like in Illustrator a lot. And it's really interesting to see you create it in Photoshop, just a
yeah.
completely different version of it.
It's funny because you get in Photoshop and I mean you get in Illustrator and then you like memorize everything, shortcuts and all this stuff, and you can like do it with your eyes closed. And then you go into a new program, and you're like, how do I do this in photo or how do I do this anywhere else? And you like have to remember it. So like when I do this, sometimes if I work in Photoshop too long, I forget some things in Illustrator and vice versa. And I'm like, why is
Or
this
like
so?
different languages, like same region, but different languages, or like different
Yeah, they're
dialects.
cousins. They're
Yeah.
cousins. Okay, so what you want to do is that you need to create a smart layer for all these. So a smart layer, you're going to want to create it and convert this main R as smart layer. And I'm going to group these all the three outlines so that whatever filter effect that I put onto it, it'll do the same across all of them and create that as like one object. I create that. And so to create the fun little weird blurs and gradient stuff, not gradient, the blurs is that I'm going to go to there, go to filter, and I'm going to go to field blur. I don't know the actual technical terms of what it actually does, but all I know is that if you go higher, it blurs it more. And if you
That's
go
fun.
lower, it doesn't. So if I go higher there, but then I do a second point and you make it with no blur, and it'll take away the rest of the blur from the rest of the letter. So like, but it's a pretty cool effect and I really do like it. I don't know if there's anything similar to this um in Illustrator yet.
I don't
But
think that there is. I mean, if somebody in the chat is aware, again, sorry about the dogs. If somebody in the chat is aware of a way to do this in Illustrator, I'd be super interested. But I don't think that there is. But this is
yeah,
awesome.
but you can do like multiple points too. You can even add more in there. And so forget what the actual term is, but like why the 2 points really have that effect. But I really like how like sometimes you get a little bit crisper line and then these just really just like dissipate kind of like out. So I did for that. And then what you want to do is you want to that are out of the way. You want to click OK. And then you're going to do the same thing with the outline. But you know what? I actually want to put a noise across the background.
Are you a
What?
millennial if you don't use noise in every single of your projects? The answer is no.
Everything. I have to.
I also want to give a heads up. We got 10 minutes out. No need to rush.
No need to rush.
Heads up on timing.
Thank you. So obviously, if you go higher, that's a lot of noise. Go lower there, but we want it just right. Just to add some of that little color pixelations there, which maybe a little less. I'm gonna go with 12. Sure, that looks great. So I'm gonna do that, and then I am actually gonna do the same blur effect with outline. So I can go to filter, blur gallery, field blur, and I want to blur these like outline strokes that we have here, and then just do that, and then like really emphasize and make it clean in one. And actually, I want to blur out other areas that are not as blurred. So I find this like just fun in general.
It is a lot of fun. I really enjoy seeing this process and like how like with each step it's changing and how you're editing those and adjusting them to make it just like look the way that you want it to.
Yeah. So we got that. And you know, you can do whatever you want. Like I think what I love about this is like it's like this blur effect gives it like an abstract feel that I'm really digging. And I actually used it for one of the executions I was like trying to mock up for. I created like it was for basketball. And so I created these blur effects with like just circles that represented like hoops.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
it just was like really cool. And so it was just like, oh, it's like perfect. And like I don't want to change
I really like that. Okay, also I just got a note. We're actually ending at 1:55.
Oh,
So
perfect.
but I do like how we kind of like came full circle where I was like, oh, I love this piece. Have you ever used it in your client work? And you were like, yeah, I just did with the basketball.
I did. I pitched this to one of the spots, and it was really cool looking. And I think it's actually on my Instagram feed if you guys want to check it out. So yeah, that's it. But I guess we're leaving in. Oh, we got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we could do a quick outro.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining. Give Jess a follow at by Jess Cabato.
Yes.
Click on whatever links that she has in her bio if you're in Jersey or want to be in New Jersey and attend her lettering workshop. I'm gonna try to be there, but realistically, my schedule probably won't allow. But I am gonna try. But oh wait, you said that there's a wait list. Okay, well sign up anyway because if you sign up,
the more people that sign up on the wait list,
I'm so sorry.
I'll finish it for her. I will hopefully get another one to go up on there. But yeah, no, it was great talking to this. I had such a good time. Jess, I love you.
I love you too. I'm putting the dogs in another room for the next session. I'm so sorry.
No worries. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Thank you all for coming, whoever came.
We can't see the chat, but we love you.
Yeah, I don't know.
See ya. Toodle.